Okay. It's a Kyle Larson video! Yes, indeed. Only 4 races in to his Hendrick Motorsports NASCAR career, Kyle Larson has returned to victory lane at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Honestly, an absolutely fantastic race, start to finish, very exciting, and certainly we have a ton to talk about regarding Kyle Larson, likely now a legitimate championship contender, if you didn't already know so by him moving to Hendrick Motorsports. Let's get into it. And yes, welcome back in the Bigfoot truck stop shirt that I bought from the truck stop when I found out that Kyle Larson had officially returned to NASCAR in Hendrick Motorsports, and now we're here. And this is a big moment. This is kind of where all the expectations, all the speculation, all of the rumors have kind of led to since the iRacing incident. God, it's literally been a year ago, hasn't it? It happened, I think, right at the end of March, maybe the beginning of April of 2019. What a journey it has been for Kyle Larson to get from the lowest of lows, and now looks like his career is about to hit a high of high. First thing I want to talk about, though, doesn't have a whole lot to do with Kyle Larson, and it is the fact that this was the first race where I actually felt like the high downforce package really produced something kind of special. It seemed there was a lot of talk on Twitter about what was kind of causing the super exciting racing we were seeing, particularly on the restarts, but not completely limited to the restarts, which you've kind of seen with the high downforce, low horsepower package for so long. But there were still lead changes able to happen late in runs. It was actually quite an enjoyable race, not just restart wise. And there's some, I think the prevailing theory is that cool conditions and overcast conditions, which we saw here at Las Vegas today, coupled with a very high-speed track, which Las Vegas is, really allowed this package to shine and gave us a really entertaining race. And it's one of those things where this is kind of the exception, not the rule, it seems, with high downforce, but I guess we'll take it when we can get it. I will also say it was nice to see a couple of green flag pit stop sequences. That definitely, I think, helped add to the intrigue of the race, even though, yes, it was a Kyle Larson runaway at the end. I think you still had some stuff to talk about with potentially Brad Keselowski making up time in the pit lane. But Kyle Larson really had the car to beat today. And what really it comes down to, in my opinion, yes, he had the fastest car, but they made an incredibly smart strategy call. And it was based on a mistake they had made earlier in the race. Kyle Larson and his crew decided to not take tires. It cost them a lot of positions on one of those hectic restarts. Larson's car wasn't the best on restarts to begin with. So late in the race, what turned out to be, I believe, the last yellow of the race, they bring Larson down into the pits, they get tires, and he goes right to the front and eventually takes the lead. And ultimately, that was the decision that made Kyle Larson the winner of this race. Obviously, he had the best car, but he had some deficiencies on restarts. And the restarts were where he lost all of his time. So how do you make up for that? You get him tires, and then once the cars kind of spread out and evened out, not running side by side all the time anymore, Larson's dominant car was able to kind of take over. And then you had the extra strategy options that were presented to you by pitting earlier. You had fresher tires, you had more fuel, and ultimately, even though Kyle Larson was slow on entry to pit lane and actually got held up by a lap car a lap previous, they were able to overcome that because of their great strategy. And here we go. Larson, I believe now, is a legitimate championship contender. Obviously, because he's now locked into the chase. But I've been saying this for a while. Him coming to Hendrick Motorsports, this is not a field-filling operation here. Rick Hendrick essentially has an unsponsored car. I know he signed a couple of associate sponsors, but there's no primary money going into that thing. Nothing of super, super high significance right now. This is a year where Kyle Larson and Rick Hendrick are going to build a dynasty. And they're going to be so good that they are going to have to, companies are eventually going to have to take notice. And the interesting thing to me, going to be watching this whole process, is at what point does success outweigh the mistake that Kyle Larson made last year? Because as we know, there was a big mistake, and it's going to leave a lot of companies will never or no longer be interested in ever having anything to do with Kyle Larson. But I think you can't deny that virtually every race and several races, I mean, I look at that Daytona road course race, I look at the Daytona 500, Kyle Larson's right there and in prime position to potentially win those races when it counted. He put it all together here at Las Vegas, but in reality, he's been right there all season long. And again, looking at how NASCAR now operates, with no practice, no qualifying, the track time is significantly less than he's ever had in his whole career, particularly if you look at what's happening at Ganassi, and now also seeing how, kind of where Ross Chastain stacks up against the rest of the field in the same car Kyle Larson was in last year versus how Jimmy Johnson did in this car last year, and now how Kyle Larson's doing in it. Again, that's another factor, isn't it? The fact that Kyle Larson has gotten this equipment that 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson really couldn't do a whole lot in his last few years. Now suddenly this car is running up front. It's winning again. Yes, the number is different, but the equipment, the crew is the same. It's definitely, this is not going to be the last win by any stretch of the imagination for Kyle Larson this year. And it's very possible that this is going to be the revenge tour that maybe some people were hyping. And certainly I may be hyping right now, is that you just think he could go on a tear here, win a ton of races. Of course, you've got to win Phoenix to win the championship, as we know. But if Larson gets to Phoenix and they are absolutely just clicking along at this pace, I think he's a really legit championship contender. Final point in this video, because I do think it's important, is that the Band-Aid is now ripped off. It has felt, in my opinion, I think a lot of you probably are noticing the same thing, that while they have been acknowledging Kyle Larson, NASCAR, Fox, everybody, they haven't been outright promoting him. They're not talking about him, say, for example, the same they are about an Alex Bowman or a Bubba Wallace or a Kyle Busch. Drivers who have lots of corporate sponsors, drivers who have a relatively clean image. This is going to be a Band-Aid that, ultimately was going to have to be ripped off anyway. I suspect you'll probably see a couple of articles throughout this week that have some interesting headlines. And it's just going to be something that ever since you brought Kyle Larson back into the fold, you're going to have to deal with. We know he's done the off-track work. We know because most of the people probably watching this video are hardcore fans or have watched other videos where we've talked about the stuff that Kyle Larson has done with, say, the Urban Youth League in Philadelphia, stuff in Minnesota, with the African-American community. Is the mainstream going to know that? Are normies going to know that? Probably not. So it's going to be definitely a process, I think, for NASCAR, their PR team, everybody involved, to deal with the fact that, yes, this is a driver who said the N-word in a very public space in a time when there was no sports happening, and it was the headline for the longest time. Kyle Larson has mainstream infamy right now. And for a lot of people, that's how they're going to define him perhaps for the rest of his life. And that's, again, like I've kind of been talking about, has been and always will be, at least for this year and probably years to come, the interesting story, the real driving force in this story of Kyle Larson is going to be, how does the mainstream treat him? How do sponsors treat him? Especially compared to his success level, because we kind of figured out once he came back to dirt, started winning. I think he won 60% of the races he entered last year, Chili Bowl, all of this stuff. Larson is going to be a winner, a big-time winner. He's going to keep winning. And so the discussion of what happened last March is probably not going to go away for quite a long time. It's going to be the question of when are people going to let that go? And when is Kyle Larson, if ever, his career going to be defined once again by what he does in the cockpit of a race car versus what happened last year during the lockdown? I don't know. It's very, very interesting to me. This whole story is fascinating. It's definitely very soap opera-y. There's no doubt about it. But I think in some ways that's what some people really like about racing, is some of that soap opera drama. And certainly the comeback, at least in terms of racing in NASCAR, you had to think that the first win was going to be a significant milestone for Kyle Larson. He's now achieved that. And now we're going to be looking on the racing side of things for bigger and better things to come, because I definitely think it's coming. And I think now that, especially now that you've knocked down that first barrier of that first win this early, you got to think the floodgates are going to open up. Also, his first win, by the way, on a 1.5 mile track, which actually kind of blew my mind. But that I think that says something, because maybe once you start getting to some of those other tracks that Kyle Larson's really good at, you think about Dirt Bristol or Michigan or well, they won't run at Fontana this year, Michigan, the 2 mile racetracks, maybe some of the road courses. I don't know. I think this could be a very big year for Kyle Larson. It's starting to look like it's got the makings of that. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments section below of anything I've talked about in this video, the race in Las Vegas, or anything else that's on your mind. The comments section is an open and free discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and I will see you in the next video.